we are going to get started. So all we're doing tonight, it's not going to be real long. I didn't want anybody to feel like they had, I know probably we all wanted to, because what else is there to do when it's like freezing cold and snow outside? But tonight, all we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do the background, and then I'm going to show you the outline. We're going to paint, we're going to draw tonight. If you did any of the previous ones that I've done for you guys outside of the Heart Club group, we did a scarecrow one, and we did some snowmen, which are super fun. And then there was a Be the Light one. And so all of those had templates. Tonight, I do not have a template for you because it's simple enough to draw. And you're thinking, it's not simple for me. I will break it down where it's simple. And you guys, one thing that's neat about acrylic paint is you can redo things, you can fix things. So nothing's really like permanent where you can't fix it. So just trust me a little bit. If this is your first time, then just let me walk through this with you, and I will show you how to draw this out. And that way you can gain maybe a little bit more confidence and like, oh, I really can do this. The only reason I know that you can do this is I've been teaching in studio classes for 7 years, and I never really used templates for anything just until maybe this last year. There's a few paintings that I've made a little bit of a template, or maybe for just part of the painting just to have, because my classes are just getting so big, and for me to get around to help everybody, it was just easier to have a template available. So for this one though, I know there's a few of you asked, where's the template? There's not gonna be, but you're gonna be fine. So anyways, so this is the one that we're painting, and I'm gonna move this to the side, and I'm gonna make my light a little bit brighter. I am actually painting on, so this, let me show you really quick. Let's talk about the supplies that I use. So this is the, I always get the wrong angle. Okay, so this is, I forget, I think I'm recording off of my, which I am. My phone's up here, that's what I need to look at. This is like a deep profile canvas. So it's like about 3/4 inch deep profile. And so that's what I use a lot. That's what I use for my classes. And the size of the canvas is a 12 by 16. I don't really care for the big 16 by 20 that a lot of the paint party studios use. I just feel like they're too big. I've always used this size. I just think it's a perfect size to be able to take something home, to be able to have a display somewhere without having to have a big amount of wall space. So this is a good size. It's a good size for learning. Tonight, I'm painting on, this is canvas board, and I like it, but I don't like it. The only thing I don't like it is that it can have a little bit of a bow to it, which it's fine. You can kind of see it kind of wobbles. And I did use this already, and I just painted over. That's one thing that's super nice about painting with acrylic paint, is that if you have a canvas that you're not, like I will never put that picture up ever. It's the first time ever, whatever I did it. You can just paint over it and you can reuse it. So there's many times where I've reused canvases. I can't even talk right now. I'm getting too excited. Many times I've used canvases over and over just because it was just something I was teaching with, and it wasn't something that I was going to necessarily display. So you can also use like pads of mixed media pad. You can paint on that. It just dries a little different. So there's a little bit of, comparison. It might be not exactly the same feel as on a canvas. Okay, so that's the what we're going to paint on. Then my other supplies are paintbrushes. And so these are the 2 paintbrushes that I use for all of my classes, what I've used from the very beginning 7 years ago when I started doing this. And they just seem to be a great size for what we do. So this is a size 8. It's actually called a bright. It's like a flat brush, and it's probably about a 1/2 inch wide on the bristles. So it doesn't have to be a long one. I don't know why I ended up with long ones, but that's what I've had. You can get them shorter handled, I'm sure. And then this is a Blick Scholastic Wonder White round brush. This is one of my absolute favorite brushes. It's not real big and it's not real small, and it's good. Has a nice tip on it. So if you want really small lines, it does well with that. Plus it makes great for getting some thicker lines for that too. So these are basically the 2 brushes I use for all of my classes. Every once in a while, I may pull out a really big, like it's a chippy brush, just a cheap paintbrush, to just paint maybe a background really quick before I start doing that. So there's the brushes I use. Of course, a waxed coated paper plate I like better than the ones that aren't wax coated, because the ones that aren't, the paint seems to dry in it faster, and this kind of makes it good for a mixing palette, and they're cheap. And then of course I keep water for rinsing my brush and paper towels. And yes, I do reuse paper towels if they're not totally wadded up and crusty. I will continue to use it until it is. Okay, so let's talk paint. I have my paints here, but these are not in the containers that they're in. Let me get one really quick so you can see. Coming right back here. I gotta dodge the lights here. Okay, so this is not a size you'd ever have to get unless you were doing serious painting. But this is blue acrylic. And this is the white, and I buy it in 1/2 gallons, and then I fill up these little ketchup bottles with my color. So this is the brand of paint that I use. It's a fluid acrylic. I love it. This is what I've taught with. It's a very inexpensive, good paint, acrylic paint to learn with, and it does beautiful paintings. And I've gotten to the point where I do all my paintings, even if they're, not in the studio, but I'm just painting for a commission, which I do once in a while, not a lot, or for myself. I still love this paint. So the thing is with that, so one thing you'll learn about me if you don't, if you haven't already painted with me before, is I only use, and I can't see these, and you can look down on them. So I only use these colors for everything that I teach. And because I love mixing colors. Now the one we're doing tonight does not have a whole lot of different colors in it, so there's not a tremendous amount of mixing, but there we'll do enough that you'll kind of get comfortable with it. So yes, split paints are awesome. So the colors that we use, we're going to be using a black, and this is a Mars black, and this is all the brand that I showed you. This is titanium white, and those we'll definitely use tonight. This is called phthalo blue, and I don't remember how to spell it, but I know it starts with a PTH, and then I think it's a THLO. It's kind of a unique way to spell. This is a bright red, and this is chrome yellow. My bottles are very well loved, and users paint all over them. So anyways, I buy the bottles at Walmart in their kitchen area. So, okay, so for tonight, we are only going to use, we're going to use white. So whatever kind of white paint you have, we're going to use white. Get it dim. Paints are cold out here. So I will need a little bit more white because I got the whole canvas we're going to be using white over. I'm going to use all we're going to do is like a little bit of a colored background, and I'm going to show exactly how I did the color in mine. So there's my yellow. I don't need hardly any. I won't even need this much because it does not take much color. And I'll show you the original painting here again really quick so you can look at it again before we start. It doesn't take much color at all to make your white paint get too dark. And then we're going to need black. Whoop, this one's needs refilled. And this is what we're going to use to draw our picture with, our painting with, draw the outline as the black. We do not have to have perfect lines for that. So to get that fear out of your mind right now, because we're going to not have to worry about perfect lines, because I'm going to show you how we're going to cover them up. Okay, so do you see? And I'm going to brighten up. Actually, let's go ahead and brighten up the light now. And let's get me out of the picture here. So this should, hopefully, here in a minute, will make the painting picture bigger so you don't have to see me. What happened here? Okay, there we go. All right, so we should be brighter. Scoot the computer out of the way. It don't need to be up here. All right, so anyways, you can see there's just some variation of color. So the colors that are underneath my white that kind of get mixed in is that yellow, red, and blue. And this is why I love this split screen thing with Zoom I have setting up now, because now I have room for you to see my plate and my painting at the same time, where before I didn't have that much screen space. So, all right, so what we're gonna start with, I'm gonna put this one back up. You kind of got the idea of how light, there's very light color in it, not a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with you. The first thing I did on mine is I splattered some paint on it. I am not gonna do that because one, my computer's right in front of me and I don't normally paint with a computer in front of me, but I'm gonna show you an alternative way so we don't have to splatter it. So I'm just gonna take my little brush and I'm just gonna dip in, and I hardly have any red paint on it at all, just a little bit. And I'm just gonna dot a couple dots. I'm not getting very thick. You guys, if you put big amounts of paint, you're gonna have a really dark color. Now I'm doing a little bit blue, and you can do it close to your dots. And I'm only doing part of the canvas because it's gonna dry fast. Now I'm gonna just dot a couple yellows, which they're kind of getting green because I have blue on my brush. Okay, let's just start with, I just have this part of my canvas. I don't have anything up there. And so now I'm taking my big brush and I'm just gonna scoop white paint. Don't be afraid of using too much. So I have a good amount of paint. I gotta get under because my little screen doesn't show. I can't see it as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over this and I am going all different directions. Let me grab some more. All different directions with my brush because I just want it to look kind of abstract with just barely any color underneath. And I'll put, I really work those colors in. And I might get some little heavier or streak places that I can work out later. But like I said, if you do too big of an area, it may dry on you too quick. So I just do a little bit at a time, and I'm going both directions, and I want every bit of my canvas to have paint on it, okay? So if you kind of look for where you put your paint, you can kind of, before it dries, you can kind of spread it around, smear it really good. So it just has these little hints of different shades of color. Trying to work out the little dots. Now already some of it probably dried a little quicker than I wanted it to, but not, see over here, it's making some really nice very pale abstract look to this. So that's kind of what I want to do. And so you can see again, you see the yellows, the pinks, the blues, and they're just all going different ways. And sometimes the yellow and the blue will mix and make a little green, and maybe the pink or the red and the blue mixed a little bit and made a little purple. So we're just taking enough paint to just get a little bit of color. Okay, so I'm going to do this again with my little brush. You guys are totally, if you are splatter experts, you can totally splatter this if you'd rather do that. Like I said, I'm not really set up to do that. Okay, I'm going to do less of an area this time because I feel like it dried a little bit too fast over in this area. And I didn't do yellow this time, so we'll see. I might, yeah, we can add more colors on top of this. So this will just get you, now if you guys have other colors, you're welcome to use whatever colors you want. But I do want to kind of get you a little bit familiar with me if this is your first time painting with me and how I teach and how you can make so many colors with just a couple colors. It really saves a lot of money when it comes to buying paints. And I think it really expands the options of color that you have when you just have a limited palette to begin with. So it helps you have a lot more colors than you normally would. Kind of see where I can't quite tell if I got all of this covered. Since I painted it over to begin with, it already has paint on it. So I got to make sure I get those spaces. All right, so now I'm going to just take, I want a little yellow up here, I think. Not much. Now, if you prefer more vibrant colors, you can do that. Tomorrow when we, so So today we're going to do our outline, and tomorrow when we paint it all in, I'm going to also show you how we can, again, kind of go around maybe some of the branches and stuff, and it'll just kind of just show you. I'm going to show you this one again. So you can see where, like my branches, when I draw them, and you'll see it better when we start doing it. I've painted my background again, right up around my leaves and my hearts and my jar. And so it just kind of has a fun style to this. And so I'll show you that. And I know everybody kind of has their way that, like, I don't want it to look that messy or whatever. You know, some of you guys will be really, I call it perfectionistic with the way you paint, because I am not a perfectionistic painter. I like to have things a little bit more on the messy side. It just is me, because I tend to be messy. And so rather than trying to change me to be something I'm not, it's easier just to go with my messy, a little bit messy style. So forgiving for me. All right, so I'm going to again take a little yellow up in here, just put a little bit down there. So these are just our primary colors. Like I said, if you have other colors you like, if you say you like purple, you want a really soft purple background. Also, when you do your hearts, they don't have to be red. When we did the class the other day, some people had some pink hearts. I don't remember if anybody did. Maybe somebody did like a purple heart, but you can do different color hearts. But this was just a nice contrast to the red hearts. A soft pink background is definitely, I just put my brush in red paint. Soft pink background is definitely a pretty contrast to red hearts. If you do pink hearts, a yellow background would be really pretty for that. If you're going to do purple hearts, yellow would be a pretty contrast for that. Again, really, I don't think you can go wrong. You just kind of, and I'm adding a little bit more color now on my brush, just to kind of add a couple of places. Now that I've kind of gone all the way through, I can tell where I want some more color. All right, so I need this to dry for a minute. I'm going to, this place in the middle was a little bit more yellow than I want. Makes me think of yellow snow a little bit. So I'm going to just tone that down just a little bit. If I wanted, I'm going to just take a couple. I'm going to just show you how I have just a teeny bit of red on my brush. You're using media. Yeah, it's not mixing. Holly, yeah, I know media paper is really difficult to mix your paints. You do have to use a lot on your brush to get enough so it doesn't dry so fast. So if you can get it, you might try the splattering on it, or you can not do the little dots, and you could just take, so let me show you if I was using media paper. So I'm just going to take a little bit, I'm still in the pinks on my brush, and then more red or more white. So I hardly have any color, and I still just go around all over it instead of doing the little dots, because those definitely will dry on you with a mixed media pad. So I want a little blue. See how I'm wiping it off, so I'm not getting hardly any at all. And see, there's a lot there, but I can go back and you can cover it up because it does dry fast on that paper, but you can also, so you don't have to do the little dots at all. It's just tends to, we tend to easily get way too much paint if I don't show you just such a minimal amount. So those are some options you can still do, and just play around with it. And you know, you can still do it. And then if you want to redo it later, you can. So you can use it for practice. I hate for you to just not be able to paint. But anyways, okay, so I need to let that dry a minute. And then the next thing we're going to do is draw our vase and our hearts. So what would happen if my paint's still really wet is if I tried to do my outline on it, my black would start pulling in the other colors and my black wouldn't be black. So definitely want to, I'm going to bring this down just a little bit closer. you definitely want to let that dry for a minute. And a trick to getting something to dry fast is a hair dryer. I usually keep one handy, but I can also talk for a long time. I gotta get me a little stand for this painting here. I can also talk while paint dries. It's hard to wait for paint to dry though, I know. And I am known for getting impatient and not wanting to wait for it to dry. But anyways, while we're at this point here, if anybody has any questions, be sure and ask me. Like I said, my video is a little lag behind. So if I don't answer you right away, it's only because there's a little bit of a lag in between the Zoom video and the Facebook video. So if you guys have questions at this point, if you're frustrated with something, you can ask me and I'll try to talk you through that. I am hoping to get my Zoom to where in my heart club, the first week I used it was last Wednesday. We do it on Wednesday nights. I do want to get where we can all participate if you want to be on Zoom. Yes, you can paint this on wood, Jackie. Definitely it will dry way different and faster. I love painting on wood. It's just such a fun surface to paint on, but you'll notice a big difference between canvas and wood. To have the look of wood, I would suggest maybe, this is what I do. A lot of times in my wood painting classes, we've done chalk paint. Like I have a video and I can share, if you remind me, Jackie, if you want to see my video on how I prep wood for painting, if you do that in another post, I'll remember to put that video in there. But I take pine board, which is just the really white pine, and I cut it for my classes, and it's almost the same size as this. It's not quite as wide. It's a little bit, it's a 1x12, but it's actually measures 11 and something. But anyways, we cut them, we sand down the corners so they're not harsh. And then I take diluted black paint. So, and my son gets paid to help me with this. My youngest son's 13. I have black paint with water, and I just put it right on the board, and I'll use a sponge or a paper towel. And I'll just rub it on there and it soaks in. It looks like stain. I used to stain them when I first did it, and I didn't have a studio here at my home, and I would go to another location and bring these, and I used stain, and it's like, it took so long to dry. And of course I was always doing stuff last minute because I'd have more people wanting to come last minute. So I'd be taking these freshly stained boards in my car, and the fumes are so strong. And it was like, I had to come up with something different. Diluted black acrylic paint will look like brown, dark brown stain. It's beautiful. And if you use more concentration of the paint and less of the water, it makes it a darker, but it turns brown because of the pine color underneath. So if you want that video where I tell how to prep those boards for that, I do that. And then what I would suggest is probably for this, because I have done floral arrangements on wood, is I just use chalk paint and a chippy brush. Do I have a chippy brush over here? No, I don't. I don't have one handy. But I just streak chalk paint on my board, whatever background color you would want to do. And then I would just paint the vase and the flower arrangement only on top of that, would be how I would do it. So definitely can paint anything on wood. Great question. I just need, this is still wet. It's not going to dry real fast in here because that's not, see, look, it's sticky. It would make a nice texture too. That's one thing, is this kind of paint, I kind of like that texture. The brand, the quality is a good quality, but as far as having texture, like the acrylics and tubes isn't going to have the same texture. It will have some because there's a couple little layers that dry thicker than others. But if you want a good texture paint, you definitely need something a little sturdier than this. But that's another reason why I like to paint on pre-painted canvases that have been painted into something before, is just the layers of texture. So this one was painted on something else before, and you can see textures in it underneath it. So I love that look. I just like the feel and look of good textures and bright colors and all of that stuff. Well, I have a heater down here. I bet it would dry really fast. What else can I ask while we're letting this dry, and I'm sure you guys are still working on your background. You're probably really not waiting on me. I usually try to move somewhat fast through my painting classes only because one is it's really hard on my end to know where everybody's at. And when you have larger groups and you're trying to wait on different people that maybe are slower at painting, which is nothing wrong with that, then it's like where there's a lot of waiting going on and some people can't have that much time. And so now probably the last about 6 months when I do my online, I just go through at a pace that suits me. Space heaters, well, yeah, I know. Oh, the edges. Yes, Gia, good one. Yes, space heaters do work well to dry it for sure. This one does not have the edges painted, but if you are using the deep profile type canvas, you definitely can bring the same. You can do what we did on the top around the edges, or sometimes I will take and go, I don't have one handy. I'll paint around the edges black or just whatever color. Do I wet my brushes every once in a while, Jody, but not very often at all. They're not completely dry. So after like these are in my water. So after I clean them out, I will definitely get the excess water out of them. But they're not completely dry. If you're wanting to blend something, say we were doing a sunset, and actually that's on my to-do list to make a blending tutorial and just like blending colors for a sunset. If you're wanting to do a sunset and you're wanting your colors to be very gradual, changing from one color to the next, a little bit of dampness, you don't want them too wet because it just really thins down your paints. They don't cover as well, but a little bit will help them, that transition be a little bit smoother. And when you're on a canvas, because of the woven texture of the canvas, it does help push that paint down into the holes a little bit more, which I know some people get a little bothered because they can still see some of those little, the weaving a little bit on it. And so that helps with that, but very rarely do I put water in my brushes. I'm not saying it's wrong, but definitely you wouldn't want very much. So anyways, that is, let me make sure. Yeah. So edges, painting on wood, wetting your brushes. So anyways, those are a couple things that I do. Trying to think if there's anything else that might be some helpful tips. As we move along, we definitely will have more tips for you, for sure. So yeah, this is definitely taking a minute. I am going to put mine down here in front of my space heater for a minute because I don't want to sit here for too long. All right. You can look at this one again. Are you guys still working on it? Oh, I think I end sometimes before I finish my thought, but I was saying earlier in my classes, I tend to just go through my painting kind of at my speed. That way, then those that are taking a little longer and want the extra time can come back and rewatch where maybe they left off. Because I know that we've had to work through, I've had a great group of ladies that have helped me grow in my online teaching. And so sometimes it gets a little frustrating when they're way behind me, and it's easiest, I think, for me to push on through. Then you could come back and do the parts that you left off or that you needed a little bit more time with. So watercolor would be beautiful in this, Gia. This would be a beautiful watercolor. I would just draw the arrangement and then paint. This would really be pretty watercolor. I might want to do that in watercolor just for the fun of it. But beautiful. So when I teach in my watercolor videos, the ones that I was kind of gearing towards kids, I drew it with a Sharpie. Now, if you don't want any outlines to show, you could just do a pencil and do a very light pencil. That way your pencil marks don't show. But I wouldn't paint the background as solid, but you could still give a little bit of a watercolor wash around your stuff if you wanted to. So that might be a fun one to do. That kind of intrigued me for sure to do this. So I love watercolor. I love acrylic. They're both absolutely phenomenal. Has any of you ever done oils? I've done oils once, and it's not that I don't love them. I'm just intimidated by them because it seems like a little bit more work than what I'm used to having. I just want to be able to get my stuff out, sit down and paint, and then put it up. But water or oil paintings are beautiful. I'm curious if any of you guys have done oil paintings. So let me check. This should work well. You use your blow dryer. Yeah, I know I have a blow dryer, but I didn't want to go get it. There's a couple sticky spots just where it got a little thick. Just give it another couple minutes and I think I'll be good to go. And I'm moving my camera. Sorry about that. You've used oil before doing acrylic on canvas? Yeah. Or you used oil. Sorry, there's two Jackies. That's funny. I love it. Okay, so Jackie used oil doing acrylic, and Jackie Dobbs, is that how you say your last name? Oil only before. Carol, well, good for you. This is your first acrylic. So Carol, it's going to be probably a lot different for you. You'll probably, I hope you don't get frustrated. I know that there's people before that have painted with me that have never done acrylics, and they were frustrated at the speed that it dries. So that's definitely something. But the thing is, when this dries, it's just a matter of layers. So this one shouldn't be too hard on you because we're not doing too much blending and all that. So it should be pretty. But anyways, so yeah, oil. So yeah, I would love some tips and tricks. I have oil paints. I just never know what am I supposed to get to mix in them? Because I know you're so, okay, I think I'm good enough to go. All right, so we're gonna switch back out. He loves using marker. Yes, I know. Some of them are so expensive. Check the website that I get my paints from, blick.com, have a whole bunch of different kinds, or Michael's or Hobby Lobby. They're not offering the big coupons as much anymore, but that's how I would buy stuff like that. But Copic markers are amazing. Yes, markers would be great. You guys, there's so many great things you can do this. Carol, you did the snowman. Yep. Yeah, I bet you had to get used to those later. All right, Jane, thank you for hanging out. And yes, I will be back, or you can come back and watch it, and I'll be back tomorrow night. All right, so dry enough for you guys. So now we're going to paint. We're going to draw. So I don't want any of you guys to be intimidated, and I will teach it. Just who was it said this would be a great one for kids? I will teach this. Is the way I teach adults is the exact same way I would teach kids. You guys are all just as willing and amazing as kids are. So it's just a fun thing to do. Anyways, okay. So now we're going to, let me get this back. I flip the screen around. Okay. Make sure I can see what you guys are seeing so you guys don't miss out on stuff. Okay, so I'm using only black paint now, and I'm using my small brush. The first thing is I want to let you know, because of the way I'm going to show you how we can kind of cut around the whole plants and stuff tomorrow. And this is another reason why I split it up, because that step itself can take a while, and then that's the last step tomorrow night. So then if people aren't done, you know, and I'm finished with it, or I don't have to finish all of it, can kind of show you the basic very last step of what to do to kind of trim your lines down. That doesn't have to be like, you have to be on here for all of that. But all right, so I'm using black paint on my small brush, and I don't want you guys to worry about how thick these lines get, because like I was just saying, we'll be able to trim them down with the white paint. Takes a couple layers to do that. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our jar, and the jar is going to be about a hand's width, and I know everybody has different size hands, but about this far, graciously, this far from the edge. So first thing, just so I can move my hand out of the way, I'm just going to put my line here, and I want you to see already my lines are not perfect. Okay, the other thing is the top of the jar, you don't want it higher than halfway. You want to make sure you stop before you get halfway. Now the jar on our reference, I'm just going to lay this here for a minute so you can kind of see it if it doesn't slide down here. Okay, so has a little bit of a curve. You guys, any style of jar is going to be good. It does not have to be just like this. But I want to make sure that I do not go higher than halfway because you want to have room for your stems. So the first thing that I do is I'm just going to make 2 parallel lines. And I also want a good 1.5 inches maybe at the bottom. And then the width of it, whatever I'm going to say, this is how I teach the kids. 4 fingers when I'm doing online. This worked really well because it's like I couldn't see what they were doing. So, and I know kids have smaller hands, and so, but it would be a good enough reference. So I'm doing 2 parallel lines first. You guys, my lines are going to be not straight, not even as far as like the width of the lines, because part of the painting is to change those. Now the bottom of my jar is going to have a very slight curve. Okay, just a little bit. Doesn't need anything really strong. All right, so now before I do the shoulders here on this jar, I call it the shoulder, I'm going to come up and make my line for the top of the jar and just kind of up a little bit and a little bit less. And I just gave a little slight curve to the top, just like I did the bottom. And then, so it's a little straight for the lip on it, and then just a little curved shoulder. And again, you guys, don't get like, I know when I had my class in here and some of them were stressing about exactly what their shape of their jar was going to be or what it was. And it's like, when they were done, it was amazing. You can see the picture on my Facebook page. All right, there's our jar. Okay, so now this is when it gets fun. This is when it gets fun. It's also going to get a little crazy with the layers of leaves. So, but when we paint it tomorrow, it'll make better sense for you. So for right now, it's just going to be like a little crazy. And you guys, I hope, so surely nobody's going to call me tonight. I forgot to put my phone on silence. I hope not. All right. There's so many steps. I said that last time I did this. I need to make a list of all the things I need to do before I go live, because I forget many times either to plug in my computer or my phone. And now I forgot to put it on silence. All right, so we're going to do 3 stems. So I just come out of my jar, not clear at the bottom, and I'm just going up, and I don't make these super straight because they're branches, so they're more organic shape. They're not real perfect. And I'm going up, and I'm going to bring this stem up to the left. And I'm not going clear up to the corner, but I'm coming down just a little bit from the corner, but I'm leaving a little bit of a space before I get to the edge, because I'm going to put a leaf there. So there's stem number 1. If you guys really like this painting, by the way, somewhere deep down under the videos on my Facebook page, I did a lemon branches last spring with the same style, and it's still hanging in my kitchen. It's one of my favorite paintings. It's good for home decor. And there's nothing better than to paint your own home decor. All right, so there's stem number 1. Okay, so the next stem is going to be the center stem, and it's going, doesn't matter necessarily where it's at in the jar at the bottom, but it's going to go up, and it's kind of coming out of the middle of my jar a little bit more. And then this one's going to come up almost, but not quite to the corner up here. And I just keep getting more paint on my brush, so I make sure I have a heavy enough line. And you see my line's not super thin, because with the paint tomorrow, we'll be able to thin these lines down. So don't stress over how thick your lines are. If you want them really perfect and thin, it's fine. You can do that. But I will show you tomorrow how we can make them thin in different places and thicker in some. Okay, so there's stem number 2. So one more is going to be this one. It's going to kind of come up alongside this one, and then it's going to take a dip and just kind of bow down that way. And if your stems are not exactly placed like mine, it will be okay, because nobody else is ever going to see what mine look like and be able to compare it. So you don't have to worry about what somebody's, oh, that doesn't look like what it should, because they're not going to know. Okay, so there's my 3 stems. All right, so now I'm going to start doing the heart. So my heart shapes are kind of like a teardrop. See them? Kind of a teardrop shape or a water drop shape. I started out, the very first one I did, I started out making them heart shaped. So if you want to do them heart shape, I never changed that one back. So you can kind of do that. But they're more rounded at the bottom, so they're not so football shaped. But also, other than the, or each leaf has its own stem. So the first ones, of course, is the stem is on the end of the painting. And I know sometimes it's easy to make them too small. But you guys, I saw beautiful paintings the other day in my class, and they had some small ones. So just give it enough. Think I want enough, big enough to be able to paint in. And if you do small, it's probably going to mean you're going to have more of them to fill the space. So just find a good size that suits you. So this one over here, and like I said, originally this was a heart shape one. It does not have to be. That wasn't the intent to make them all that way. But all right, so I'm putting all of my big leaves or my end leaves on the ends of these. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add, so I'm just going to do 3 stems down this side. Now, if you have smaller leaves that aren't as close together, you may want to do more. So it just kind of depends what fits your painting. So now I'm going to start adding all of my, and they don't have to be all evenly spaced. And I want you to notice how thick my lines get. At times it's okay. Okay, so now there's 6 leaves on the underneath side. And they don't have to be just adjacent. You guys, this is a make-believe branch. So you can have your own rules for where your leaves go. So don't get like, oh, they have to be exactly apart, or, you know, across from the other. Just try to keep your size of your leaves fairly close. Now, overlapping. Just overlap those. Just let them overlap because we'll sort out which ones go on top tomorrow, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so I want, well, let's do, we'll finish the leaves before I do any hearts. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do the same thing. But this one, my branch is big enough. I think I can do 4. If I do more, I might, I don't know. Sometimes after a while, my brush will get so much paint on it that it gets really loaded with paint, and I'll just wipe it out and then go back and get it again because it just starts getting so thick. Now this one's going off the edge of the board, which is fine. I know that my ladies that are on here that are in Heart Club are going to feel tortured when I say, okay, that's it for tonight, because they're so used to me painting the whole painting. They'll just have to wait. You'll have to tune in next time. It's like, what, like, okay, so we're watching, well, here's one, Magnolia. You guys watch Fixer Upper? And have you seen the new Magnolia channel that Joanna Gaines has with her cooking show? And then they've started Fixer Upper, and then they have a bunch of other shows. Well, they only come out once a week. So it's like the old days when you used to wait once a week for TV shows. You can't binge watch on all of it. And it's like, man, I can't hardly wait till next week. So that's what this is like. This is episode 1. You have to tune in next week for episode 2, but you don't have to wait a whole week. You just get to wait till tomorrow. All right, this is when it's going to start getting a little bit, well, not quite, when I do the hearts, when you start getting these layers on here. I'm going to do one right here. All right, there is branch number 2. See, I'm not even worried about where my hearts are going to go. Oh, I love her cooking show. And Gia, yesterday for our Super Bowl, I made the spinach artichoke dip, and actually there's leftover in there. And I told my husband to save me some because he's eating some tonight. It was so good. I love her cooking show. If I could have my painting show, if I could have my online stuff be anything remotely like her cooking show, I would love it. She's just so down to earth. And that's why I think we love that, is because I mean, yeah, she's got professional stuff going on, but she's just so herself. And that's one thing I want to be, is myself. But I just love her show and her personality. All right. This one just has, I think, 3. We'll see. That one got a little big, but that's okay. When we get the colors on this, it's going to be so pretty. Oh, did you make the biscuits? I saw them. I try not to eat too much bread, but I was like, man, after watching her show, I'm thinking, okay, once a week, it ain't going to hurt nothing. Those biscuits look delicious too. There's so many things. Like everything I saw, it's like, man, I want to make that. I want to make that. I would like to try the baklava. Is that how you say it? Baklava for something special. That looked like a lot of work, but I would like to do that one day maybe. The only problem is if I'm going to do that, I better have a lot of people around, which I have plenty when I have my kids around, to help eat it. Because if I don't, then I'm going to eat it all. All right, let's see. Now, where do I need to do this? Okay, so I'm getting my last leaves on here. And I'm going to put one. No, I'm not. I was thinking I was going to put one up there, but I don't think I will. All right, so I have my leaves. So they're all, if you want to know, they're all odd numbers. So there's 3 and then the 1 on the end. And this one's got 4 and then 1 on the end. These have got 3 and then 1 on the end on each side. So I know this painting, I'm going to show you again. It doesn't matter how many hearts. I just tried to have it balanced a little bit, you know, just kind of whatever. Artistic eye, what looks good. Your boyfriend's mom wanted them. Did you make them? I bet they were delicious. And putting eggs in them, that would be good. I do biscuits in a pan, butter biscuits, and my 13-year-old doesn't like them. They're like too much for him, too greasy, I guess. But anyways, hearts. So whatever works for your hearts is what I'm saying. So anyways, this is where it starts like, okay, this doesn't make sense. You don't have to worry about painting around anything. Put your hearts right flat. They were great. Right flat where you want them. Okay. So I have, and I'm just following along what my other painting was just to save me having to think too much. But the heart has a stem. And then I like the big bubbly hearts. The really fat, wide ones. Wide and shorter, I guess. But maybe they, you know, mine are not all the same either. Okay, so there's one. I'm just going to come up here. So just kind of fill around where you want. You got to think. You're going to have all these green leaves and you got bright red hearts. So just think where you want them. I'm really stretching your imagination. If you're not one that's done a lot of painting, this might feel a little uncomfortable, but I hope to get you where you enjoy painting and you just do it more often. You don't have to be afraid of it. All right, so this is where it's going to be hard to see where these hearts are, because this is what I'm saying, where it gets a little messy because they're overlapping. So tomorrow we get to decide, do I want this leaf over top of my heart or do I want this leaf behind my heart? And that's kind of fun to do. All right, so I'm going to do a stem, and this heart's on the coming off this side. So I make my stem just kind of curve over because I want my stems. My hearts are heavy enough, not heavy in a bad way, have enough weight. We don't want heavy hearts, but they all flop down so they're right side up. And you do want them a little bit bigger than your leaves, so they'll just kind of really pop. Gia, I might have to make those this weekend. I don't know. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3. Now there's looks like I did 2 on each branch, if that matters. It doesn't really. So this is where I'm not sure how they'll fit. So I'm just going to go ahead and make them, and we'll see where they go, what I end up with. So I did this one off that middle branch. If you have to resize stuff, just go ahead and resize it. Just so make sure you can tell. Hopefully tomorrow we won't forget what our lines are. We can find them again. All right. Yep, I'll have room for 2 more hanging down here. My lemon branches that I did have, I want to say there's 3 lemons hanging, and then there's a couple, I don't remember. I have some lemons laying down on the table too, but it's a fun one. So if you like this one and you want to go find that one, that's another thing. If you say something to me, remind me, I'll post it in the group. So I am not even thinking anything about where my leaves are. Tomorrow we get to pick, like I said, which leaf will go in front of my heart, which leaf might go behind it. Maybe they both go behind. I don't want to cover them up too much, but it is fun to have. Okay, so there's 5, and I do want 1 more down here. And nice fun hearts. All right, so ladies, look how thick that is, just because I wanted to make it bigger. It'll be okay. I will show you tomorrow how we're gonna put the color on this and how we're gonna trim down the lines, so you can see how you can decide how much you want of your black lines to show. So you can see on these, you can still see the black outline. You can even still see some shadows of the thick lines that I had in different places where I could still put more paint on this layers to kind of cover those shadows up. But I just painted, it's like a coloring book. Tomorrow it's gonna be so much fun. We're gonna paint each of our leaves and our hearts in our jar, and then we get to trim down the stuff. I trimmed down my stems in here and just made some as thick as I wanted and some thin. The jar lines are very thin. So if you even want less of that to show, you can. Some of my little stems that are holding my hearts, my leaves are smaller than the main stems, but I'm going to show you all of that tomorrow. So that is it for tonight, ladies. If you have any questions, I'm assuming we have all ladies in here. It doesn't matter. I love it if men paint. So I'm not trying to be, it's just for girls only, because it's not. So anyways, I just think that it's all ladies that joined, but I may be wrong. But anyways, it's so nice to meet you and visit with you guys. I look forward to doing this again tomorrow night. I hope you can make it back tomorrow night. If you hate the shape of your jar, Gia, you can just paint the shape that you do like. And then tomorrow, or if even today, you want to just kind of cut it out with some white paint, you do it very thin and let it dry. And then you can go over it again with several layers to just kind of shape it how you want it. But I can also show you exactly how to do that tomorrow. So you can definitely manipulate shapes with your paint. I will tell you time after time. You're welcome, Diane. So glad you got to join us tonight, and so glad you didn't miss it, because I know you were worried. But I will tell you, on covering up something, thin layers will go much better for you than trying to do really thick to cover up something. Same way, if you ever painted your own fingernails, maybe way back in the day, if you tried to do a second coat before the first coat was dry, it would just get sticky and it wouldn't be smooth. It's the same thing. You want thin coats and then let it dry and then add more coats. And so the more layers of completely dry paint that you do will cover better. So yes, we don't want to wait. Thank you, Kim and Yvonne. Thanks for painting tonight. I so love doing it. So it's definitely something I look forward to. So I will see you ladies tomorrow night. Enjoy your evening. If I pop on here after a bit and you guys had some more questions for me, I will try to answer those. Any of my Heart Club ladies, if you see questions you can answer for me, I'd love the help. Thank you, Kathy and Sue. I'm so glad to have you guys. Thank you, Kathy and Holly. You guys have a good evening. We will see you tomorrow night, same time on here.